Dynatrace redefines developer experience by unifying logs, metrics, traces, AI model telemetry, infrastructure, and security data into a single scalable platform that integrates directly into IDEs and CI/CD pipelines.
Sean O'Dell, thank you so much for being here with us today. I would love to talk to you about software delivery.
I think I've been talking a lot about software delivery this week, and I'm looking forward to the conversation and really excited to be with you.
Developers are shipping a lot of code right now, and often they don't write that code anymore because we're in this era of vibe coding. And it really feels like we might be hitting a point where it's an observability moment for vibe coding. What are your thoughts on that?
I want to be careful. I am a firm believer that development is going to happen outside of observability, right? Start with that premise.
Okay.
Vibe coding is happening outside of us, outside of it, like non-developers. Citizen developers, if you want to call them that, is this kind of terminology that I'm starting to hear, are already using vibe coding and creating software and creating applications, right? Especially this week, some of the noise in some of the bots. But what happens is, and I think where we see this is, with the proliferation of this, there's some missing components. Number one, is this the right code? Is this the right way to do it? The second thing that I think we see is it safe code? Is there a risk? Is there a concern? But at the end of the day, a developer wants to ship. And I think what we look at that is vibe coding needs observability, and just use a generic term, not going to use Dynatrace, but a developer, a professional developer, a citizen developer, needs to understand what that test or what that experiment or what this latest release has caused. And so it's a combination. Start with the software. That's the fundamental, the basis, the foundation, and then add on things like CI/CD. Obviously, add in observability, add in security along the path. So it's shift left, but really it's just shift everything to developers owning it. And that's kind of an interesting phase in the vibe coding world.
So does that change in large organizations? Does that change who needs observability?
Absolutely. It's been an interesting one, right? Historically, Dynatrace was focused on the developers in the APM, the original days. And then we as an industry shifted. It's SREs, platform engineers, IT ops, DevOps folks. And I think where especially internally, because we are a software development shop, just like everybody else, it's the developers who are now asking for, I need this log, but I also need it to be intelligent. So put it behind from an AI perspective, what does it look like for my, 500 logs at this particular time? But then they want the visibility of the relationship context, and they need to have that information. And so it's not just the IT ops person anymore. I'll give it this way. We had developers creating code, shipping code, and then everybody else picked it up. Now the developer takes ownership, not whether they want to or not, but they're actually the ones doing the reliability, or the SLO matters just as much to the developer as in the past has done to an SRE. So it's definitely a blending or an expansion of observability and or contextual data at the same time.
So how do you reach these new, if you can call them developers?
First of all, for me, a developer is a builder. And I don't mean an SRE, I don't mean a platform engineer. That's not a negative, right? I'm a huge fan of SREs, a huge fan of platform engineers. But for a developer who is innovating, creating code, pushing to production, notice I said pushing to production. I say that on purpose because a developer is now pushing to dev, test, and production. The lines have blurred. And so for us is we have to reach them where they are, right? Being authentic, being in the angles, the avenues, the locations where they're at, right? So for us, the past couple of months, we've been at things like We Are Developers in Berlin, which is the largest software development conference in the world, right? 15,000 developers. And for Dynatrace, that was great to get back to our roots, right? We showed up at GitHub Universe for the first time last year. We changed how we looked at KubeCon as a good example, right? I'm a huge fan of KubeCon. I've been far too many times at this point all around the world, but we looked at it and said, hey, not only do we want to continue to reach our, historical audience, but the developers, they're looking for something different. And I think that the case in point is it's software delivery first and not observability first. And that's not a negative, that's a positive. And so we're just going to continue to reach them. We actually launched something this year, and it's probably one of your questions, called
Tell me about it. Just go ahead.
I'm going to go ahead and lead to it.
That's
right?
fine. That's fine.
That's where my head and my heart have been for the past couple of months. So Dynatrace, historically, this is a practitioner level event, shifted a few years ago, adding the executive along with it. Yes, we have to be friends with our executives, right?
Somebody's got to sign the checks.
Somebody's got to sign the checks. But then we looked at it and said, last year they launched a 2-hour full of lightning talks, not really sales pitches, if you want to call it that, right? Not necessarily hands-on. But this year we kind of expanded that program. We call it Developers that Perform. And it was really about fun, authenticity. We even had somebody this year who has never given a talk before, is actually not a developer, is also a year and a half out of school in university. She is an English major, lit major, and she has been vibe coding for the past 6 months.
Sure.
And her story is the rest of the world, right? We are all now developers, whether it's AI assisted, we're leveraging all of these services. And so it's about the citizen developer, the professional developer, and better yet, I think this is the fun part. We want to give those SREs, those platform engineers who maybe have never written a line of code in their life or started from nothing is a good way to put it. We wanted them to see the innovation, the future of this is giving them something in addition to what they're doing on a daily basis. And so it's an expansion of their role in some ways. And the beauty of this is it was not necessarily about Dynatrace or observability. It was, here's what's going on in the development world. Here's what's going on in the AI world. We had vibe coding talks. We did a hackathon with our friends at Microsoft and GitHub Copilot, right? That's something unique and different from a Dynatrace perspective. And if you even think about it, and multiple conversations this week is the MCP. A year ago, we weren't really talking about this.
Right.
And today, it is the interface from an AI-assisted world to a machine world, to an agent world, to a human world. And so those are the things we've done. First time we had it, and it's been a great success, and we'll continue to build upon it in the future.
It's a really exciting time. But I'm curious, how do you feel that you can give confidence to these developers that the code that they're shipping that they don't know about is legit?
It's funny. One of our developer advocates, Jeff Blankenberg, he's a lifelong professional developer, and he uses a scenario. It's not vibe coding. He's given a talk on this. He did it at All Things Open. It's not vibe coding if you know what you're doing.
I agree with that.
And I think the one thing we have to look at that is just because I don't understand the language, right? If you go ask Claude, or if you go ask GitHub Copilot to create an application, you don't know whether it's going to be Java. You don't know. Now, unless you give it the parameters, right? It's a different story. But hey, give me an application that does something that is important to me. And if you don't prompt it to use Node, or you don't prompt it to use the language of choice, guess what? You're at the mercy of it. And so you have to learn. But I think that's a benefit, right? We're expanding our horizons. We're expanding where we're at. And we don't have to be kind of set in our ways, which is very ironic from an IT world, because I've been doing this a while, and we love to be in our own way. So that's one of the things I've seen is the developer is not just a professional developer anymore, but the safety and this idea of what is behind that code. Do we care as much anymore about the operational structure, or the way that I like to create this, or the way I have done this in the past?
Art is the art of it.
It is the art. It was funny you bring this up, so I'm going to go down this direction. So last night, one of our CTOs, Alice Reitbauer, delivered a talk to close out the Developers that Perform event. There was no code. There was no PowerPoints. There was no, traditional things. He actually compared the art of music, in his case, he's a musician, to being a software developer. And his topic was which I'm trying to remember here. I think it was the conductor or the lead violinist, meaning what is the role of the developer in the AI age?
Right.
And so he compared the arts. Even going back to the tech talk from Maddie, she's not even a developer. She's an English major, a lit major, and she leveraged her history and background from a literature perspective and said, sentence structure is technically the operational structure of code.
Yes.
And so it's an interesting parallel. It's an art. It's a beauty. And I think that's one thing we have to embrace. Be authentic in it. And if you want to write in your specific language, please, by all means. But you know what? Expand a little bit. Enjoy it.
I'm not pushing back on anything you said, but this is actually a topic I've been thinking a lot about. your example of the English major, she has a very good command of the English language.
Yep.
And that is required right now for vibe coding. How do you think we take this to the next level where you don't have to be an English major to make it work?
Fun scenario. I was speaking with our leadership team a couple months ago, and our chief revenue officer said, yes, this past weekend I did some vibe coding. And every part of me was like, hold on just a second, right? What are you talking about? I just think, no, I created an app, and kind of dig into it. He has no context. He has no understanding. But what he then leveraged is, and through that process, and I think Maddie did the same thing, is they learned some of the art, they learned some of the skills, some of the knowledge by going through prompts and asking different questions.
Sure.
And in my case, a couple of us have been working with Maddie. Is we haven't been giving her all the answers. And not in a negative way, not because we don't care, but we want every individual to understand what it means to be a developer and be unique in that, right? We all come from a variety of backgrounds. I refer to myself as a reformed infrastructure architect and now very focused on the developer, right? But we all started somewhere. And I think the last thing I would say is, no matter the AI assisted code generation, 8 months ago, 10 months ago, 12 months ago, they weren't very good, but they're becoming more and more intelligent. But at the same time, that is something we can learn from. And even better yet, if I am now to the point where I give very clear instructions or spec-driven instructions, it's going to get to the point to write it the way I wanted it to be, or at least I told it to be. And so I can start to learn that way. So maybe it's start with nothing and just do very generic. And then as you learn, add a little bit more flair, add a little bit more personality to the things you're creating.
Yeah, I've talked to several different people today from Dynatrace, and we talked a lot about feature flags.
Oh, yeah.
Where does that fit into it going forward?
I remember the feature flag story from many, many moons ago, right? And it was simply, we're a software company and we want to release something, but we don't want to release it to the world. We're in SaaS. And we just want to try it with a few customers, or maybe use it as a gate of, well, you paid for this certain capability, but not another. Gone are those days. And I think that gets down to AI-driven development and or AI-assisted development. Experimentation is now happening in production. If you would have told me this 18 months ago, I would have looked at you and said, we probably need to rethink this conversation. I was having a conversation with a developer I guess it was a couple of weeks ago, and the lines between dev, test, and production are now blurred. The beauty of a feature flag allows you to do that experimentation no matter where it sits, right? And in a lot of ways, we are now doing development in production. And even if you look at the AI native world or prompts, prompts are now being hidden or leveraged behind feature flags. And so feature management is no longer the days of gating certain capabilities. It's really about enabling experimentation, but having some sort of control, and also reducing the risk and making it safer. So to go back to your last question, that is a little bit of the way we look at it, not only from our own internal development process, right? Because we are doing the same things with AI and prompts and LLMs, but it is us allowing our customers, allowing the users, and more importantly, the developer to do some of the experimentation while still pushing to production. And in the historical days, we would push to production and the SRE would go, what did you just do? Now it is the developer pushing, owning, and delivering, as well as now troubleshooting all at the same time. But it's all happening in production. So that's
one of your press releases from this event stated something like, and this is not in my notes, so I'm trying to go from memory, 95% of AI projects don't make it to production, right? Where did that stat come from, and how do you fix that?
So the interesting piece of this, and I cannot remember the publication, I'm pretty sure that was one of my PRs. It's been a long few days.
That's okay.
That stat came from, who was it? Was it Gardner? Can't remember. I'll get beyond that. That stat is, I think it was a year and a half ago when that came out. And the reason being is because we were all just, or not even a year ago, 12 months ago, we were just looking at AI going, what is this? Like, what is actually upon us? And so there was a lot of, I'm not going to use the word experimenting. There was a lot of just testing or
Yeah,
trying to
right.
understand, right? Which is different, and how that has evolved into we now understand it. We now know how to use it. We now can actually experiment with it, and so it's not a we don't use that stat as like a scare tactic or to be naysayers of AI development and workloads. I think even some of our customers this week who, whether on main stage or in some of the breakouts, they are talking about real world in production AI driven development and agent to agent or agentic conversations. And so I used a fun one. TELUS, one of our customers who was on main stage, they've been doing this. They built their own MCP. They leveraged our MCP in the past 8 months. And they were building agents leveraging Dynatrace before we had Dynatrace productized to them.
Right.
And so that's a beautiful thing, right? They're leveraging the technology. Whatever the MCP you choose, whatever that agent you choose, the data is what we need to get back to. And I think the last thing I would say to this 95% failure is I think we were
I don't know
trying
if it's a failure.
Oh, fair point. Or 95% of where are they going, what are they doing?
Yeah.
It wasn't as simple as some of our historical stats around this because it's a new frontier, it's a new world. And so I don't consider them failures in the same vein you do. I consider as we were trying to figure out what's been happening.
Yes.
And now we're productizing, or now we're putting it into production. So it's been a good thing to try it out. And I think we just have to embrace it, but also make sure it's secure.
How do enterprise customers approach vibe coding? And I guess, better question, how do they suppress it from being secret within their organizations where the product managers are vibe coding on the side and they shouldn't be?
So what's funny is I actually think product managers should be vibe coding on the side. Yeah. To be fair, though, I don't believe that's the code that we should be pushing to production. I know some of our product managers might disagree with that. However, so I had a conversation a couple months ago, right around GitHub Universe. Won't give the name, but a VP of engineering at a very large organization, 3,500 developers. They were rolling out GitHub Copilot to every single one of those developers. And I asked him a very simple question. Well, what is the number one barrier of entry? And he said, unknown. And he said, and I was like, what do you mean by the unknown? And he said, we are humans. And some of us are skeptical. Some of us are going to take it, embrace it, and do things with it that we've never done before. And I think that gets back to the point of a product manager rather than I think of it this way, a product manager is going to have to go create, jump into a visual graphic design and put some dummy GUI UI together, some user experience. Now it's actually a real user experience or a more real lifelike experience.
The front end looks great. It does what it needs to do.
Rather than just a generic static screen, right? Yeah. We have these things. But then the translation or the transition from that is, hey, I'm a professional developer. No offense, Mr. Product Manager. You're a citizen developer, right? Those aren't negatives. I'm going to take that. I'm going to put some structure, some operations, some security, some safety behind it. And so it's taking the history and the intelligence that you as a developer have had and applying it. But here's the best part. You already have code generated and you don't have to start from nothing. You can actually go to your prompt and be like, I liked this, but it's not the language or standard of my choice or the organizational choice, or put some boundaries around it.
Sure.
And so it's that transition, and I think that just helps with the velocity of things.
Yeah, I have about 2 more questions here. And really it's about bottlenecks. AI speed ups code, but is it shifting the bottleneck to deploy?
We have this conversation all the time. I think for myself, from a Dynatrace perspective, everything we're looking at, I don't love to overuse the word shift left. But we now, instead of looking for the problem to happen, we should be looking at code generation, or even maybe the first production, or the first push to dev. Why are we not adding in some of the valuable data, whether it's from logs, traces, metrics from a traditional observability perspective, but why not incorporate some of the security capabilities or some of the traditional gates that slow things down? And I think that gets to is true shift left, but it also gets to the point where can we use agents to do some of these things?
Right.
And I think that's the other side. For us, we believe, we have an SRE agent, we have Site Reliability Guardian, we have so many different things, but the industry as a whole, if you look at, I was looking at a demo from Kiro a couple of weeks ago, and they have these powered by Kiro, and it is step by step of things that we historically would call a gate or a slowing mechanism in some ways. That is now, instead of I need to have 4 humans look at this and validate the code, I now can use intelligence inside of an agent, and it's agent to agent, and then maybe down the line the human comes in, or maybe not. And so it's a choice, right? You have the opportunity to leverage it in that fashion, but we at Dynatrace, we want to make sure, and obviously I'll speak to observability here, is it's there from the beginning, and it is not a gate unless you as an organization and as a human want to make it a gate. And I think that's the key, right? And every organization does this differently. I would actually say some applications, it's a bit of a free-for-all. Some applications, guess what? Probably need to have a little bit of guardrails.
Yeah.
But how can we do it in a way that is not intrusive, that doesn't slow down the process, and it's not shifting some of these things to just kind of pass along, but it's not really my problem. And so it's definitely an embedded process. And we do that in ourselves, right? We are a software development shop. We have incorporated AI or AI assisted development or vibe coding into our own practices. And so but at the same time, we need to be secure. We need to be reliable. We need to keep the application going. And so we do leverage it in that fashion.
I think really the last thing here is what is the enterprise not prepared for with AI?
Oh, you're going to get me in trouble for this one.
Well, I'm hoping so.
The rise of the developer. And I know that sounds funny. I've been doing this long enough. The developer actually used to control, I don't want to say control, the developer used to be you go back 15, 20 years, it was the developer that owned these things.
Sure.
We in IT operations, whether it was the DevOps, process or methodology, we kind of shifted that away and said, Mr. and Miss Developer, please go create the code, send it over to me. We'll make sure it's perfect in production. We'll take ownership. Sometimes that was forced, right? Don't get me wrong. But now the developer owns every piece, bit, and part of the SDLC, and it's in dev test production. Guess what? You, Mr. and Mrs. Developer, you have to be the one to control this. You have to own it. You have to make sure it's secure. You have to make sure all of these things. And so it's a shift of it. But I think we now have an assistant, if you would say, right? I'm a home automation fan, and I love my home automation. It's a nice assistant. But guess what? As developers, we now have an assistant, probably too many assistants if we want to look at it that fashion, but we now have an assistant to help us in that. And so for us, embrace the developer, embrace what they're doing, embrace that they are a part of the process now into production, take ownership of it. The last thing I would say, and enterprises have been doing this for a long time. Anytime we have something new come into the industry, right? It could have been cloud native, right? I'm a longtime VMware employee. The virtual machine was a barrier of entry many, many, many years ago, right? We've gone through this before.
Right.
I think what we're seeing with AI, in a very generic term, is enterprises are much quicker to implement, leverage, and utilize AI than even some of these, historical cloud native VM type of technologies. And I think that speaks to the power, but also the benefit, the human benefit. And as somebody who daily focuses on the developer experience, on the user experience, it is about the human benefit. And if I can offload some of these things, which I do on a regular basis, whether it's code, whether it's in a document, doesn't matter. As a human, I want to benefit from things. And I think that's what we in the enterprise world have to take and understand. It benefits us as persons and individuals. And let's do it. Let's embrace it.
Yeah,
we're all in it
do
together and embrace the chaos, as somebody said the other day.
Empower the developer.
Empower the developer.
Right.
Not in a risky type of sense, right? I mean, what I do in my own pet projects, like, let's be fair. As we're recording this over the past 5 days, there's been some, I would argue, some risky behavior within AI, not to mention a very specific bot that has been released.
You have a Claude bot?
Yeah, or what is it now? Like
Moltbot.
Yeah, so long story. But that, I would argue, should not have been on the enterprise side, because if you go look, so it's just embracing it and doing it the right way. And I think a lot of enterprises, and I would even say I've been in the space for a while now. To finish this up, is enterprises have been slow to embrace. But when I have large Fortune 10 organizations look at me and go, we have AI-assisted development, we have productions that are doing agent-to-agent communication, no human involved already, I think we've embraced this further than some people acknowledge or maybe realize.
Well, I think that's a great place to end it. Thanks so much, Sean. Really do appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Thank you.